You are making the world a better place by listening to the Joy of Living podcast. This is your guide to achieving a more purposeful, powerful, and positive life. Join Barry Shore in unlocking the best version of you and becoming happier, healthier, and wealthier. And now, here's your ambassador of joy, Barry Shore.
Good day, beautiful, bountiful, beloved, immortal beings, and good-looking people. Remember, you're good-looking because you're always looking for and finding the good. That's a good-looking person, always looking for and finding the good. And you've done that consciously and conscientiously by tuning into the Joy of Living with your humble host, Barry Shore. And thank you for doing that. It is a pleasure and honor that you come back week after week, month after month, now for the past 3 years, more than 3.5 million downloads and hundreds of thousands of people around the world. So you're joined at this very moment by 348,613 people around the world. And thank you for doing that because you're always asking your friends to come. So by the time we bring on our amazing guest today, Shawn Thompson, I know everybody is really eager to hear Shawn, then we'll have over 360,000 people. And it's just so wonderful because you appreciate what the show is all about, because the show is really only about one thing, one person actually, you. You, because when you're the best you make the world a better place. You build more bridges of harmony, create more joy, happiness, peace, and love in the world. Because you know that on this show, The Joy of Living, we talk about the three fundamentals of life. Three fundamentals are, number one, life, your life has purpose. And when you lead a purpose-driven life, a number two happens. In this case, a good number two. You go MAD. Now, MAD is a wonderful acronym that stands for make a difference. Lead a purpose-driven life, you make a difference in the world. And the third fundamental is to unlock the power and the secrets of everyday words and terms. And when we do that, the result is you will be happier, healthier, and wealthier. Who doesn't want that? So what's a simple example? Right now, this show is being carried throughout the world. People all over are listening on this magical, mystical, mythical platform called the internet. And if you ask anybody, what does www stand for? The invariably has to do with the internet. And factually speaking, they're correct. But in our world, the world of the positive, purposeful, powerful, and pleasant, www stands for what a wonderful world. And what is a word, right? WHATA. And of course, a big tip of the hat and a thank you to Louis Armstrong, Satchmo, for enabling that song, What a Wonderful World, to go viral and touch not just tens of millions or hundreds of millions, but billions of people around the planet. When you hear even the opening bars of What a Wonderful World, what do you do right away? You can't help it. You smile. Now, smile is one of the most important words you can ever internalize, utilize, and leverage in your life, because smile is an acronym that stands for seeing miracles in life every day. Seeing miracles in life every day. Now, invariably, when I speak about this in public, and just recently I did a group and no mask, everybody, human again, 1,176 people in the audience. And I'm talking about smile and seeing miracles, right? People raise their hand and say, hey, Barry Shore, I've been up for hours. I've seen any miracles. And I asked them, are you here? Can you hear? Can you stand still? I can't do that. Can you walk? I can barely do that. Do you have water to drink? You have food to eat? You have a place to sleep? You have family or friends? Every single one of those is a miracle. And what is the simple example? Simplest example. 1 million people didn't get out of bed this morning. You know why? They died. By definition, if you're watching, you're listening, you didn't. So you have an obligation to live life to the full. That's the genius of life. So simple example. Great story. Barry Shore story. Imagine standing up in the morning, hale and hearty, able to leap tall buildings in a single bound, and that evening being in the hospital, totally, completely paralyzed. That's right. I was a quadriplegic. Nothing in my body moved, my neck down. All I could do was blink my eyes. And it was not from an automobile accident. It was not a spinal injury, a rare disease which I never heard of the day before took over my body and rendered me completely, totally paralyzed. 144 days in the hospital, 2 years in a hospital bed in my own home. I couldn't turn over it by myself. I was 4 years in a wheelchair. I had braces on both my legs, my hips, my ankles. That was progress. Thank God today I'm able to be vertical and ambulatory with the help of a 7-foot walking wand. So I'm a triped, not a biped. I still can't walk up a stair by myself. I can't walk up a curb by myself, but you hear my voice. Positive, purposeful, powerful, and pleasant, all because of this one word, smile, seeing miracles in life every day. But I got to tell you a quick story. My 8-year-old niece comes over to me a few weeks ago and says, Uncle Barry, can we spell smile S-M-I-E-L? And I thought about it. Smile sounds the same. Why not? I asked her how come. She says, because then it would stand for seeing miracles in everyday life. How do you like that? Out of the mouth of babes, an 8-year-old. But what was she doing? She was creating the kind of world she wants to live in. Now, CREATE is a wonderful acronym that stands for causing rethinking, enabling all to excel. Yes, your thoughts make all the difference in the world, called neuro-linguistic programming. Causing rethinking. Now, I want you to remember these 6 words. These are the 6 most important words you can ever internalize, utilize, and leverage in your life. These 6 words are choice, not chance, determines your destiny. Choice, not chance, determines your destiny. Now, I do want to warn everybody in advance that I do use a lot of 4-letter words. And I'm telling you now, I even use the 4-letter FU word, and I do it because of the shock value. It's fun. Now, of course, the 4-letter words that we use, because we live in the world of the positive, purposeful, powerful, and pleasant, are love, life, hope, grow, surf, swim, pray, play, gift, free. And the 4-letter FU word is fun. Fun. Did you say fun? Yes. FU, capital N, capital N. People are raising hands. Hey, Barry Shore. Fun's only spelled with 3 letters. Not in our world, the world of the positive, purposeful, powerful, and pleasant. Fun is spelled 4 letters. F-U, capital N, capital L. So after the show, when you see your family and your friends, they have a twinkle in your eye and a smile on your face. Remember to point your finger and say, F you, everybody. But add right away, capital N, capital N. So where'd you get that? So I listened to Barry Shore and the joy of living, and he wants to teach the world to F you, capital N, capital N. Now, before we bring on amazing Shawn Thompson, I just want to urge everybody to utilize the 2 most powerful words in the English language 3 times a day from this point forward for the rest of your life, because they're going to be beneficial to you. Remember, you're happier, healthier, and wealthier, beneficial for you, your family, your friends, and all living beings. And these 2 most powerful words in the English language are thank you, thank you, thank you. Thanks stands for to harmonize and network kindness. To harmonize and network kindness. The Dalai Lama is quoted as saying, I read in his writings, be kind whenever possible. As he says, it's always possible. So imagine you're walking in the coffee shop, you order a fancy latte, you sit down, somebody brings it to you, say thank you. You walk in the coffee shop, you order a fancy latte, a couple of minutes go by, nobody brings you, go to the kind, say, I'm sorry, we forgot, we're busy, we'll bring it to you, sit down, a couple more minutes come by, somebody brings you, still say thank you. You're walking out of the coffee shop, it's raining out. Somebody holds the door open for you. You say, thank you. You're walking out of the coffee shop, it's raining, and somebody slams the door on you. You say, thank you. You're stuck in traffic, you're late for an appointment, somebody cuts you off. You say, thank you. Get up in the middle of the night and you stub your toe and it hurts. You say, thank you. To harmonize and network kindness. Kindness is a wondrous acronym that stands for keep inspiring noble deeds. There is nobody that I can think of that inspires noble deeds that I want to share with you than the amazing, wonderful, fabulous Shawn Thompson. Shawn, please say hello to 366,823 people around the world.
Barry, thanks for having me on. And I'm the guy that should be wearing a Hawaiian shirt, not you. What's wrong here? What's wrong with this picture? But hello to everyone out there, and it's wonderful to be on the show and to be connected to this amazing positive energy that you exude, Barry. It's
Well,
both of us.
We're just so glad that you're here. Shawn, S-H-A-U-N. And if you don't know Shawn Thompson, that means you're living under a rock. So get out from under your rock and just go, just do a search for Surf Shawn. And it will come up and you'll say, wow, is this the real Shawn Thompson? Yes, he is not just a legend in his own time. He's real. And one of the things I love about working with Shawn and speaking with him. And we're going to talk about his new book and the things that he does and where he's been and what he's going through and how he's serving humanity, is because he's been through stuff. And it's all about surfing, by the way. You know, we talk about acronyms and using words for the benefit of situations. So I won't go and tell everybody about Shawn, your background, and that you're one of the greatest champions in the world of surfing and such like that, because they'll look it up themselves. And by the way, everything you want to know about Shawn and about this show, just go to my website, www.whatawonderfulworld.barryshore.com, BARRYSHORE. Everything about Shawn will be there. So just lean in and listen, let it flow around you as he surfs through these huge, wonderful waves of life. That's really what he does. So we're just going to jump right into the water, get on the board, paddle out, and I'm going to start with a 5-letter word. And I'm going to bring out some interesting ideas for you, your background, your life. And that word is shark. Let's start with shark, your family, your father, and what it's meant to you in your life. And let's use that as an analogy, as a springboard, so we can talk about other things.
Well, I think most people, when they think of surfing today, they think of two things. One is big waves, and the other one is of course sharks. And sharks were ever present in my history. My father was one of South Africa's top swimmers. His dream was to go to the Olympic Games. The Second World War intervened. He volunteered. He was in the South African Air Force bombing the Nazis and Italians, who were also bombing my mother, who lived on the island of Malta during the Second World War. It was the most heavily bombed place in the history of the world. So when my father came back from the war, he resumed his swimming career. His dream was the 1948 Olympics. And then he was out in the water surfing. He loved surfing as much as he loved swimming, on a little wooden surfboard. And he was very, very badly attacked by a Zambezi shark. In fact, I found a newspaper clipping many years ago that said, "I was lifted clear from the water." Those were his own words. A shark lifted him clear from the water and nearly bit his arm off. So it was a terrible attack. All his friends deserted him, left him out there with this black fin circling him. And I'd asked him many years later about the attack. I would say, "Hey, Daddy, what happened to the shark?" And he said, "Oh, you don't have to worry about the shark. It died of blood poisoning." So that's how.
Wait a minute, but that goes to your whole viewpoint of life, perspective.
Yeah, very much so. So I think my father, even from a young age, taught me that there was always humor in the way you looked at life. You know, he was a very joyful guy, even though he couldn't compete in the Olympics and was never able to use his right arm fully. He still had a very joyous, optimistic, fun-filled existence, and he imparted that on to us. But certainly there was an awareness of danger there. You know, every time I'd go in the water, he'd be watching me with his binoculars. And he taught me about the joy that surfing can bring you, but also that there is always that danger there. One has to be careful. So I was the only pro surfer in the world that I think had this sort of abnormal fear of sharks. But I managed to keep it in perspective, and ultimately, with my dad's support, my mom's support, I went on to become a world surfing champion. I won 19 major pro events around the world, and competed on the tour for many years. For 20 years, I surfed in my first pro contest in '69, surfed in my last pro contest.
By the way, when he says 69, he means 1969, not 1869.
Exactly.
1969. So just put this in perspective, because I think 78% of our audience is under the age of 35, Shawn. So I want to keep everything in perspective. So 1969, at this point, if you're watching this, who knows, maybe people watch it a century from now, but we're in the year 2022 on this calendar. So that means that was 53 years ago. Most of our audience wasn't even alive. So that's how long wonderful Shawn has not just been competing, but in the water. He's waterlogged. People accuse him of that all the time. He's just an old waterlogged bloke. But so he was around doing surfing when it was these things called Gidget and, just fun, and the Beach Boys, and he lived it. And it was before surfing became a sport where a lot of money was being made and things like that. So it was the purity of the sport. Obviously, thank God he did well in the sport afterwards. But I want to bring that to people's attention because it was truly a different kind of experience. And one of my favorite movies of all time is called Endless Summer, which obviously you know, wonderful Shawn. And anybody who doesn't know it, go look it up and watch it. But it's quite an amazing testament to a time that certainly doesn't exist anymore. But I want to go to this point you mentioned about your father and the joy of surfing and the joy of water. Because in this show, which is called The Joy of Living, joy is an acronym that stands for Journey of You. Journey of You. And that's what people want to hear. They don't want to hear more from Barry Shore. They want to hear more about the journey of Shawn because you've been through stuff. You see, the analogies that you use for surfing in your life and helping out others are really tremendous. It's one thing to get on a board and surf the giants. It's another to utilize that energy, that flow through you to connect with humanity. So let's continue in part of the journey of you and the story of your life. And yes, in winning championships, doing it, but let's talk about stuff that's raw.
I think surfing really gives you a unique perspective. The first time I stood up on a board for the first time, you use the word joy a lot, Barry. I had that feeling, and surfers use the word stoked, which is sort of so aligned with the word joy. So I had that feeling of being stoked, and that passion, that purpose, that fire, that mojo, that exhilaration is really what inspires you and has inspired me for my whole life. And certainly, I think I've been able to find that same excitement, that feeling of being stoked, by transitioning into different career areas after my pro surfing career was over, because my pro surfing career ended in 1989. But during my career, I was also, really involved with business. I started my first surfing brand called Instinct in the late 70s, early 80s. And the brand was a vehicle not only to generate revenue and to kind of create a future for myself, but also was a way that I could mentor other surfers and sponsor other surfers. And I sponsored a number of other surfers to become world champions as well. I sponsored a young Australian guy, Tom Carroll, to become a world champion twice. I sponsored another Australian to become a world champion. So it was wonderful to not only be a competitor and an entrepreneur, but also start being a mentor. And then in the mid 80s, I got contacted by a guy who said Malibu, which is, you mentioned Gidget and you mentioned the Endless Summer, which is sort of an iconic surfing break, was facing an environmental challenge. And he said, Shawn, we'd love you. We're going to start a new environmental organization called Surfrider Foundation. We would love you to become our first professional surfer member. We'd love you to become the ambassador for the brand. And we'd love you to write the slogan for our new environmental organization, Surfrider Foundation. So I found a picture for them to use on their first poster. And I wrote 5 words: do a good turn today. So those words that I wrote in the mid 80s have really become, I think, a beacon for my life, and almost like a mantra for me: do a good turn today. And I can see how much power you accord to words, and how you have these wonderful acronyms that are easy ways of, I think, remembering what's really important in our lives. And for me, those 5 words, do a good turn today, have become emblematic of my life mission. And I think also it was kind of a turning point for me. The fundamental maneuver in surfing, which is this abrupt direction change called a turn, a bottom turn, really is a good metaphor for how all of us, I think, can make a change, and all of us can do a good turn today. As like you say, even as simple as just saying thank you to someone. That gesture of gratitude is so powerful, not only for the recipient, but also for the donor, for the person that's giving it. And I really realized then, and I realize today that what is our life purpose? What is our life mission? Yes, our life mission is to be better, but our life mission is also to help others be better too. And that's what I've devoted my life to. You mentioned this notion of like what's raw, what's elemental. I lost my wife and I lost our beautiful son in 2006. He made a bad choice, and certainly choices are what define us. But also, we've got to look deeper into, like, why do we make the choices we do? What influences us in these choices we make? And I went back to grad school a number of years ago. I was the oldest person in grad school. I think I was older than the oldest lecturers. But it was wonderful for me to kind of get a scientific basis for, why do we make the choices we do, and how can, through the process of leadership, how can we influence and inspire others to perhaps take a different path, to make a different choice? Because it's an unknown fact in American society that the single biggest social problem in the United States today is choice. And poor choice is the biggest problem in the country today. It leads to 1 million preventable deaths every year. 1 million deaths out of the 2.4 million people that die are preventable. So these are deaths that result in suicide, in illicit drug use, in deaths from smoking, from cancer, obesity, poor diet. All these decisions that we make on a daily basis can send us down a dark path or can send us down a positive path. And I know this, the tragedy my wife and I had to experience when my son, our 15-and-a-half-year-old son, played this terrible game that he'd heard about at school called the choking game. I know of the tragedy that so many other parents and brothers and sisters and uncles and aunties and grandmothers and grandparents face when they lose someone. And they lose someone through choice, through a negative choice. So I've devoted my life, how can I inspire positive choices in people? How can I create a framework that people can use to make better choices in their lives? And surfing gave me this wonderful gift, and I want to share it with everyone. How can all of us make a better choice?
So let's unpack this. As I mentioned to everybody on the intro, the 6 most important words you can internalize, utilize, and leverage in your life are choice, not chance, determines your destiny. And this is what Shawn is discussing. We're going to talk about the book that he and his dear friend Noah Ben Shade have authored, and really it's their poem to the world. I want to tell you what surfing, I just wrote it this morning. I was just thinking about 5 minutes before we got on together. So surfing, the acronym that I use for surfing is successful understanding, rapidly flowing insights, nurturing growth.
I love it, Barry.
Because that's what you do. I mean, when you're surfing, things are happening in the moment.
They are.
The genius of surfing, like most things in life, except that when you're on a wave, I don't care if it's a 3-foot or a 28-foot or bigger in your world, but you're in the now, because if you're not in the now, you're going to not be there. You're going to fall over. You need fully getting your full attention into the now to be able to really ride this massive, powerful thing called a wave. But let's be blunt. A wave is no different than life. It is that same power, that same roar, that same crashing. If you allow it to, it crashes and you're saying, I'm exhilarated, I'm stoked. So let's talk a little bit about, let's really engage the people around the world and just give a big sense, and we'll talk about the book after that called The Surfer and the Sage, 2 wonderful beings. But tell us what it is to ride a giant. What is a giant, first of all? How big are they? What does it take to ride one of those things without losing your lunch before you do it?
Well, for me, the most exhilarating aspect of surfing is when you actually ride inside. It's called riding inside the tube, and that's what I'm sort of well known for in surfing, is developing a new technique for riding inside the spinning tunnel of water. It's almost like riding inside a watery hurricane. it's this incredible feeling of fear and joy all merged together. You've got those two conflicting emotions. You're like frightened because you know that if you make the wrong move, you can be, smashed by your board, smashed underwater, smashed onto the coral. But that gives it the element of incredible excitement. And when you're surfing at your very best, when you're surfing in what psychologists call a flow state, the state of optimum concentration and creativity and control, you feel like you can actually curve the wall to your will. It's an amazing sensation, and that's what I was really sort of well known for in surfing. In fact, Barry, I don't know if I can share my screen on this. I'll show you. I'll give your listeners a little.
Give it a shot. I don't know. If you can't, you can't. If not, we can layer it in later. You can tell me what it would be. You can try and layer it in.
Share screen. Yeah, I'm going to share. I think I can share my screen here.
Okay.
And, can you see my screen right now?
No, I can't, but maybe other people can.
Okay, no, so it doesn't matter.
I want to tell you something that's happening right now, Shawn. For those of you who are listening, you can hear there's a lilt in his voice. For those of you who are watching, you can see how his face is animated as he's even talking about the tube, the flow, and literally, as you said it, the bending of the wave to your will. It's almost as if you are bending the world to your moment. In other words, you are the master of what's happening around you. Being in the flow says it's not about me, it's about being at one. It's an interesting word of ALONE. So everybody knows the word ONE, one, right? Everybody knows that. LONE means lone. So it's sort of related. ALONE means alone. Most people mispronounce it. They think it means alone. You and I know, and we're sharing with hundreds of thousands of people around the world, that the best pronunciation of that word is all one. And that's what you were doing when you're in the flow. And you said it so beautifully, that unique moment of combination of fear and joy coming together in the tube with the rushing sound. And look at him, he's laughing, he's animated because he knows how to ride it. And is that not life? Life stands for living inspirations for eternity. I want to jump to the book because we're coming up to the time we're going to do a commercial in just a couple minutes. I want to jump to the book and begin the process of unpacking the book and what it does for the world. Again, the title is The Surfer and the Sage. It's available anywhere that you can get books. Just go to my website, www.whatawonderfulworld.barryshow.com, and you can get it. You can order it. It's not only is it a book that's well written, and I say this with great respect, easy enough to read. The pictures are fantastic, and it's not a book that you're going to read and put down. It's a book you're going to reference. You're going to come back time and again. And I just want to begin the process. First of all, tell us a little bit, better than I should do it, tell us a little bit about your partner in this joyful process, Noah, and how it is that you came to be together to write this remarkable tribute to others, not to yourselves, this tribute to others. How is it that Shawn and Noah came to be together?
So a mutual friend of ours contacted me and said, "Hey, Shawn, I got this really cool guy I'd love you to meet." And he set up a lunch, and the two of us met, and there was just this magnetic connection between us. There was sort of an instant attraction. And after 5 minutes, he told me about himself. I told him about myself. We'd both heard about each other. Noah is he's a Pulitzer-nominated poet, author, philosopher. He's very similar to you in that he's very upbeat. He understands how to twist words together to create wonderful meanings. And within 5 minutes, 10 minutes, he said to me, "Hey, Shawn, let's write a book together." I said, "Right on. We're going to call it this. We're going to call it The Surfer and the Sage." He goes, "Right." He said, "A guide to survive and ride life's waves." And that was how the book was conceptualized. In in about 10 minutes. So I've got a question for you, Barry.
Yes,
So,
sir.
He's a scholar of the Torah, Kabbalah. He's into all sorts of mystical aspects of theology. So I said to him, no, let's pick a number for the amount of chapters that we're going to write. Come up with a really cool number. So why did we select?
Well, there's only one number because you're all about life. It should be 18.
Chai. So that's it. So 18 chapters.
Okay, wait a minute.
Life.
On that very high note, we're going to bring in, we have sponsors that love us. So let me just give a few minutes to our sponsors. Remember, everybody, we are riding high on life. We'll be right back with amazing Shawn Thompson, the surfer, and we'll talk about the stage. We'll be right back after this brief. Who's going to, yes, wait till you hear about this. Good day, everyone. Barry Shore here. So happy to be discussing with you today a plant-based, high-quality, protein, organic superfood called Organifi, Organifi. Organifi, I use it. I ordered it. I sought them out. I'm so glad to be urging everybody to try and use this remarkable high-quality food product. The story is two wonderful people, Drew and Jamal, who in 2014 joined forces together to find the best possible high-quality superfood blends. Took them 52 different tries before they got it right. And I'm telling you, they hit on something that is revolutionizing the world. Your world, your health. This is the best, the most powerful, positive, purposeful, pleasant, high-quality superfood you could ever have. That's a simple it. You know, I swim 2 miles a day, every single 6 days a week. I use this to restore and regenerate my being, and I feel better for it. You can't go wrong. You must find your way to the website and use this product. I want you to go to Organifi, Organifi.com, Organifi.com. And when you go there, you're going to put in the code LIVING, capital LIVING, living, and you're going to get 20% off your first order. This is stuff that you're going to want to have for you, your family. You're going to tell your friends, everybody, this is health. This is good health. This is great health. Organifi.com. Please go there. You'll thank me for it. You'll be jumping up and down and telling the world. Go to Organifi.com, put in the code LIVING, capital L, capital I, VING, and get 20% off. And I look forward to getting many, many comments and emails from you saying, thank you, Barry Shore. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Good day, beautiful, bountiful, beloved, immortal beings, and good-looking people. Remember, good looking because you're always looking for and finding the good. We have good in abundance. Our cup runneth over with good. It's a human being, a two-legged human being. His name is Shawn Thompson. You know him. People know him all over the world. One of the greatest surfers of all times. A man who lives life to the full. And we're talking about this amazing book that he and his great friend Noah Ben-Shea have authored called The Surfer and the Sage. Hello, 18 remarkable, we won't even call them chapters. They're 18 remarkable, how they say, relentless breaking waves of life, from loss to aging, relationships, and guiding one through. And the book is just so beautiful, beautifully written. It's illustrated, great pictures and such. So we're now talking about how they came together and what they're doing. And of course, it's all based on 18 because 18 in the mystical world is life. Let's talk about life, which stands for living inspirationally for eternity. I'm going to just read a couple of the chapter headings, and you'll understand with just a few of these what they're about. Then I'm going to ask Shawn to just dive in and talk about the process of understanding some of these. So as an example, the first chapter, anxious, blah, 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 anxious and calm. Another chapter, doubt and faith. Another one, confusion and clarity. Isn't this wonderful? Powerless and empowered, giving up and letting go. And at the one of the penultimate ones, uncertain and committed, and the ultimate one, privilege and gratitude. Gratitude. So, Shawn, just take it away. Just talking about the book. What motivates you when you speak to people at book signings or you're speaking to people on podcasts? Tell me one or two or three of the nuggets that you have uncovered in the writing process and in the speaking process about the book that really helped you and therefore others.
So when we were writing the book, I was doing a lot of speaking engagements virtually. I spoke to about 100,000 people during COVID, and I would ask people, send me a word that describes how you're feeling. So I used really cool technology. People could text me a word and it would magically come up on the screen and form a word cloud. So I got a really good indication of what people were feeling during COVID. And these were very large companies. These were schools, universities, and the 4 words, I called it a sad mindset: stress, anxiety, depression, and disconnection. So these were the problems that people were faced with. So in the book, what we try to do, we try to have a book that was a guide to help people move from one state to another. We didn't want this book just to be the positive. We wanted to show the negative and how to get to the positive. We wanted to show the darkness and how to get to the light. So the book is about duality. And underlying everything in the book is, like you say, is choice, is commitment. So I want to read one of the fundamental chapters, and all of the chapters are important to all of us. But this is I'll just read you a few words on a chapter that's called Uncertain and Committed. So underlying all positive decisions in and out of the surf is commitment, our internal personal power that drives us to action. Commitment and purpose are twin forces that provide us the certainty to know that when the next wave comes, we will take it and not sit and wait endlessly, paralyzed by uncertainty, by what might happen rather than what we will make happen. Finding purpose need not to be complicated. It can be found through a simple 20-minute process of introspection, visualization, and commitment called the code method. Pick up a pen, give yourself 20 minutes of quiet time, and write 12 lines, each beginning with I will. This simple code is a way to find, refine, and define one's purpose. The code, your code, is 12 lines of absolute commitment. Commitment is a way to break through the bonds of uncertainty, a covenant with ourselves, a promise to be better and make others be better, a call to action. Commitment to a better life is not difficult, and it starts with 2 simple words: I will. So that's how to write the code. That's how simple it is. Pull out a sheet of paper, spend 20 minutes of quiet time by yourself, or you want to do it with your spouse or with your family members or with your colleagues at work. It's an incredibly powerful transformational process. And in fact, a university studied it, a very famous psychology university. And the dean of the university said to me, Shawn, this is the most transformational intervention in the context of organizational development that we've ever studied. They did a study and we got quotes back from the participants. I lost 50 pounds as a result of the code. I have a better relationship with my spouse. I have a better relationship with my child. The code is like the North Star. The code is freaking incredible. And the power in the code are not my words. Surfing gave me the structure. I just found it in surfing one day. But the power is in our words, because our words are the most important words of all in order to create transformational change. It's not going to come from anyone else. Yes, we can draw influence and inspiration from others and others' words, and I know that my words can help inspire other people, and as I know you know that your work can inspire others. But ultimately, it's about personal commitment, personal purpose, And how to do that, just write 12 lines, every line beginning with I will. That's your code. It's not my code, it's your code. So that's sort of the essence
I
of the
want
book.
to unpack something here because our time with Shawn today is brief. Hopefully he'll come back again. It's so fascinating because notice that Shawn did not talk about computers. He talked about human beings. And I think everybody that's listening, because most everybody here is under the age of 35, knows that writing code is a key element in the computer world, right? We teach kids, we want to teach kids to do coding. What Shawn has done here is he's shifted our perspective. Now, shift is a great word, Shawn. I've spoken all over the world like you, and thank God, many hundreds, thousands, millions of people. And I find it very interesting that when people say the word shift, for some reason, they drop the F and the other stuff happens. You got to shift perspective. You got to be very effing careful about your F's. So you can shift perspective like you're talking about. But coding is integral to the human condition. That's what he's telling us. You want to code for a computer? That's great. You're not a computer. The human being is more powerful than any computer that ever existed or will exist, no matter what happens with AI. Your code for you, when you follow, and by the way, Shawn got this from surfing. You see, that's the genius. What he thought he was riding waves or in the tube. He realized at some point that the whole matrix was shifting. He shifted his perspective and he went, voila, joy, journey of you. He recognized that he could bring code to the world. I want you to tell a quick story, please, because I remember this from discussions we had before. When you went to South Africa, back to the homeland, and you were speaking with young people, 9, 10, 11, 12, young, we'll call them privileged black kids instead of privileged white kids, privileged black kids. And when you gave them this ability to write out their own code, tell us some of the results that happened.
Yeah, it's actually unbelievable when I do this process. So everyone writes their code together, and depending on the environment, some students will actually stand up and they'll read their code, or some business people, if it's a big organization, people will stand up and they'll read their code to one another. And this process is a very vulnerable, but also a cathartic and creative process as well. So when I first came up with this concept, a friend of mine, there was this famous surfing break in California called Rincon. He said to me, Shawn, we're faced with an environmental problem. I want you to inspire kids. You've got $100 budget. We've got this huge environmental problem. It's about a $30 million problem. But if you inspire the kids, we'll bring state people, government people around. And if you inspire the kids about this problem, perhaps we can solve the problem. So I called it Surfer's Code. I wrote 12 lines, every line beginning with I will. I will always paddle back out. I will realize that all surfers are joined by one ocean. I will take the drop with commitment. I just wrote down 12 metaphors and I printed them up on a little card and gave them to the kids. So these cards turned into a groundswell. They became popular, and ultimately it resulted in my first book. And when my first book came out, a headmaster at a local school paddled up to me while I was waiting for a wave and said, Shawn, I would love you to come and talk about the code.
Wait a minute. You were waiting for a wave on land or out in the water?
Out in the water, and I was waiting for a wave.
So the headmaster paddled out next to you?
Paddled up to me, yeah. In South Africa, we were very scared of headmasters because they used to give us the cane on the bum.
Right.
We were naughty.
I grew up not in South Africa, but even in Boston, Massachusetts. We got it on the wrist.
Yeah. So I was a bit wary of headmasters, but this was pretty groovy headmaster on a surfboard. So he said to me, come and talk to my kids about the code. I just released my first book called Surfer's Code. So when I'm chatting to the kids, and I had my book there, I just had an idea. I had like you will say, Barry, I had a brainwave. And
right.
And I said to the kids, Surfer's Code is my code. I wrote it in 20 minutes. Why don't you all write your own code? So I'd lost my beautiful son about 6 months before. So they all wrote their codes, and the very first line of code I ever got back from someone else was "I will be myself," from a young 13-year-old kid. That was the first line I ever got. So I was so inspired by all these amazing statements that these beautiful kids wrote. I wrote another book. I called it The Code, The Power of I Will. And I started using this method of having young kids write their codes and then read their codes to one another. And I experimented with it in South Africa. I went to this very poor schools and very posh schools, black and white kids, because South Africa is now a democratic nation. When I grew up, it was a segregated nation. And kids would listen to me talk, and then they would write their own codes, 12 lines. Every line begins with "I will." And it was wonderful to see these kids not only inspire themselves with their words, but inspire others. I will do what I say I will do. I will take charge of my life. And these are kids in very, very impoverished circumstances, but kids that have fire, they have optimism, they have hope. So it was wonderful to see how these young people could use this simple process to perhaps go down a different path, to perhaps make a different choice. And for me, it was so inspiring to know that perhaps I had made a little bit of an impact in their future direction of their lives. And after reading over 1 million lines of code, Barry, I've realized that our life purpose can be defined by 2 lines of code. Like, why are we on this planet? What in our lives gives us meaning? So while everyone writes beautiful, different lines of code, everyone only writes 2 lines. So our whole life purpose can be defined by 2 lines of code. And one of the lines is, I will be better. All of us have this genetic compulsion. We want to be better today than we were yesterday. We want to be better tomorrow than we are today. So we want to be better. But then we're connected to one another. And the other aspect of life purpose is, I will help others be better. So that's it. That's what everyone writes. They want to be better, or they want to help others be better. And that is wonderful, that life purpose can be clarified by those 2 lines. I'll be better, I'll help others be better. And that's what I've come to know.
And as I said, if you're watching, you're seeing the beams of light emanating from Shawn. And if you're listening, you can hear it in his voice. And I just built a acronym for code, if I may share it with you.
Would love to hear it.
Commitment.
Yeah, that's what I write. Yeah.
Opens divine energy.
I love that. I'm going to write that down.
Opens divine energy. That's what code is, right?
I love that.
Commitment opens divine energy, because that's what you're talking about, the fire, the optimism, the hope. And it doesn't matter your physical circumstances, your spiritual circumstances, your mental circumstances, because it's about choice, about action. As you said, I will be better, and I will be able to help others. There's nothing else in life. So we call the who, the how, and the why. Who is winners help others. How is help others win. And why is winners help wisely. This is what we do. This is why I've asked Shawn to be here with us today to share his sad mindset, which is actually a happy one. Because what we did is we took people from stress, anxiety, and depression and disconnected, SADD, into faith, hope, optimism because of code. Committed opens divine energy. So we only have a few more minutes, if you'd be so kind. Let's use this one purpose, this method to activating the purpose. You said it's writing the code. And I just want to emphasize one word. I'd like you to speak about it for just about a minute or two. And that is the word called action. Because you mentioned, I will paddle out to the next wave. Because oftentimes people fall off a board, get hurt, and things happen. Stuff happens in life. Hello. your dearest son dies. People go through losing jobs, spouse, homes, suicides, all kinds of stuff. Darkness. Tell us a means of cutting into the light. Isn't action the key?
I think action is the key. I think the first step to action is the introspection, thought, visualization. And I think writing that code is so important. And if you write your code, you spend 15 or 20 minutes writing your code, make it visible somewhere. So that gives you that additional fire to create the action. And when I wrote Surface Code so long ago, I think I wrote it over 20 years ago, there's one line in there that is very, very profound, and my code helped me through the terrible grief that I experienced when I lost my son. And all of us are going to experience terrible suffering, and we're all going to look for how can we find the light amidst this darkness. And I wrote the one line, I will always paddle back out. And it might seem like a very simple line in terms of if you fall off a horse, get back on it, or if you have a wipeout, just get back on your board, paddle out. And certainly that's a really important aspect, that I'm going to get back on my board and paddle out. But why are you going to get back on your board? Why are you going to get back on your board and paddle out? Because that's where you're going to find the next wave. Only by paddling back out again, only by taking action, can you find that next wave and find the joy. So I will always paddle back out. Yes, it's about perseverance and resilience, but it's about hope. It's about optimism. So I love your acronym,
HOPE.
code.
Right, but there's another one for hope. Hope, helping others progress every day.
So I think you're so right that in my grief, I started helping others, and it gave me more hope. And when you help others, it gives you more meaning, and it gives you just this warm feeling to sort of settle this pain of darkness. So, for anyone that's suffering, I say to them, and it's just such a tough, horrible time that one has to go through, but the light shines ahead. Now, my son wrote me those words 2 hours before he died. He read them over he read me an essay that he'd written in school about riding inside the tube, and those 4 words, the light shines ahead, just sort of sprung out at me. And I said to Matthew, that's such amazing words. What book did you find them? He said, no, Dad, I wrote that. I wrote it for an essay in school today. And those beautiful words have become like a mantra for me. So for anyone out there that's going through a tough time, 3 things I'd like you to remember is write your code. 2, the sun will rise tomorrow. The light shines ahead, and paddle back out, because that's the only way you can get the next wave.
I'm going to read a few words from the book, because it touches what we talked about, the idea of the 2 most important words in the English language. Thank you. From the book, being grateful and showing gratitude by saying thank you. It's like a magical balm that can calm a turbulent soul. Gratitude is respect for others, and equally importantly, respect for oneself. Hello. We got to get this book. It's not just to read, it's to use, to be involved in. And I'm going to tell you one thing about Noah Ben-Shea, his writing partner in this. It's just a great line. Noah wrote the following. He said, and because he's more than 50 years old, more than 60. Maybe 70. He said, I am no longer young enough to know everything. What I know can fill a book. What I don't know can fill a library. So be aware that this book, this gift to us, is truly that. It's a 4-letter word. It's gift. We love 4-letter words. Everybody, F you. So I have 3 questions for you, Shawn Thompson. Are you ready?
Yeah. I hope I can answer them.
Okay. First question is, will you come back again?
Would love to. Would love to.
Okay, thank you. Number two, you only have 80 seconds for this. You ready? 80 seconds. I think we know what you're going to answer, but you have 80 seconds. What is your most fervent desire? 80 seconds.
So my most fervent desire is that every single student in the world, when they get to middle school, they write the code. 12 lines. Every line begins with, I will. Every single student in the world, when they get to that first year in high school, they write the code again, 12 lines. Every line begins with, I will. Every single student at university, when they enter university and they're a freshman, they write their code again, 12 lines. Every line begins with, I will. And they share it with the world. They create a positive wave that sweeps across this world that everyone can ride. Drop a stone, create a ripple, build a wave.
You just heard a code. Commitments opens divine energy. And here's the third question. May I give you a hug in front of 369,822 people around the world?
For sure.
Okay, let me tell you. HUG stands for heartfelt, unlimited giving. Ready?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3. And everybody, thank you so much. You're listening to The Joy of Living with your humble host, Barry Shore, and our amazing guest, Shawn Thompson. But the show's not about Barry Shore. It's not about Shawn Thompson. The show is about you. Why are you learning to write your code and living with joy, happiness, peace, and love? You live the three fundamentals of life. Number one, life. Your life has purpose. Number two, go mad. Make a difference. Number three, unlock the power and the secrets of everyday words and terms like WWW. What a wonderful world. Smile. Seeing miracles in life every day, as my 8-year-old niece says, seeing miracles in everyday life. Create the kind of world you want to live in, causing rethinking, like Shawn says, enabling all to excel. And when you do that, you remember the 6 most important words you can internalize, utilize, and leverage in your life. Choice, not chance, determines your destiny. And tell the world to F you, capital N, capital N. Remember to add that and say, where'd you get that? I said, Barry Shore wants to teach the world to F you, capital N, and use the 2 most important words in the English language 3 times a day, every single day, consciously and conscientiously the rest of your life. And these 2 words are thank you, thank you, thank you, to harmonize and network kindness. And we say thank you to wonderful Shawn, and a blessing from Shawn and Barry. And that blessing is, go forth, live exuberantly, spread the seeds of joy, happiness, peace, and love. Go mad, go make a difference. Shawn, don't go away, okay? Where we go here.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Joy of Living podcast. Now that's another step towards your healthier, happier, and wealthier life. Never hesitate to do good in the world, no matter what the situation. Join us for another upbeat discussion next time at barryshore.com. And be sure to leave a rating and subscribe to the show to get more conversations like this. And remember to share it with your family and friends too. See you on the next episode.